Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea podcast here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. Thanks for joining me here on this Saturday and starting out your weekend, talking a little bit of movies and television, entertainment, and all other kinds of stuff going on out there in the world. It's really good to have you here joining me today, and here's how today's show is going to go. I have picked out 6 questions from questions that you guys, the viewers, have sent in to me. I'm taking all the topics today from the topics that you guys have sent in. You can look in the description of this video for a sneak peek at all the topics that we're covering today. Now, how do you get a question or topic to me? It's simple. Just email me anytime at thejohncampeapodcast@gmail.com. That's thejohncampeapodcast@gmail.com. Send on in your questions. Maybe you'll see it pop up here on the show. So with all that out of the way, let's jump into the first topic today. And the first question today comes to us from none other than a Patreon supporter of mine, Esther Liberman Cuenca, who writes, how do you think Warner Brothers and DC would plan Batfleck's, that's Ben Affleck as Batman, Batfleck's exit from the series if they decide to replace him in the new Batman film? Would they kill him off or have him retire in Justice League, kill him off in between movies, or perhaps in another DCEU film? Well, thanks so much for the question, Esther, and thanks for being one of my Patreon supporters as well, by the way. I appreciate that very much. Yeah, so the question is out there a lot. How will they replace Ben Affleck as Batman, should that come to pass? So here's a couple things to keep in mind. There are a few ways they can do it. Now, there's a big theory out there that the whole reason they've bypassed and skipped over the first Flash film and are going directly to Flashpoint is directly in response to them replacing Ben Affleck and that Ben Affleck is going to leave. And that's how they're going to explain changing Ben Affleck out. There are some theories that Ben Affleck, the Batman character, is going to die, whether it's in Justice League or another film, and then Nightwing is going to become the new Batman. There's all these sorts of theories going around, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure how much stock I put in any of them. Like, look, I think it's premature to just jump ahead and say, oh, they're doing Flashpoint? They must be doing Flashpoint because they're replacing Ben Affleck as Batman, and this is how they're going to do it. There's a lot to Flashpoint. I mean, and there's a million other reasons to do a Flashpoint film than replacing one of the actors. Do they kill off Batman? Oh, it's a risky endeavor. That's a risky thing. I mean, although it would be kind of ballsy to kill off Batman and then have like Dick Grayson, who has been Nightwing, come in and take up the mantle of the Bat. That's possible. There's a lot of possibilities there. However, I think people are overlooking the simplest way to replace Ben Affleck as Batman. Should that be what happens, I happen to know that that's what's going to happen, but there's a lot of people who think differently, and that's cool. But should they move ahead and Ben Affleck leaves or they replace Ben Affleck, I think a lot of people are overlooking the simplest answer. And the simplest answer is just recast. Just put a new actor in. But that's going to cause a universe of confusion, and earthquakes will tremble and oceans will boil and people won't know what's going on. Yes, they will. Yes, they will. It's just a recast. Look, I bring this up a lot, but it's completely relevant. Look at the Harry Potter franchise. You had Dumbledore. They didn't have to, oh no, well, the one actor playing Dumbledore died. So do we say Dumbledore died and now his twin brother, also called Dumbledore, is taking his place? Do we say somebody else becomes the headmaster now? No, they just recast him. They just put in a new actor, put him in the same costume, and just said to the audience, this is Dumbledore now. And guess what? People weren't confused. People got it. People understood, oh, there's a new actor playing the role. It's just that simple. Mountains won't crumble, frogs won't turn into antelope, dogs and cats won't start playing together. It's just changing the actor. It's not a big deal. I mean, look, in the Hannibal series of movies, they changed they recast the Clarice thing. James Bond recasts Bond all the time. Television shows recast television characters all the time. Thor, one of the Warriors 3, one of the actors had a scheduling conflict, couldn't come back, so they just recast him. No big deal. They didn't have to say that Thandril died, and now there's a new member of the Warriors 3. No, they just recast him. The Batman franchise itself has recast Batman many times. So honestly, I think should all this happen and should Ben Affleck leave as Batman for whatever reason, then it's just a matter of just putting in a new actor and just saying this is Batman now. People fill out taxes. So people have the mental capacity to wrap their head around when watching a movie, oh, there's a new Batman. That's it. It'll take 30 seconds to adjust, and then we'll go on and watch the movie. And then people will make comparisons. Was this new guy as good as Ben Affleck? I doubt they will be, because I think Ben Affleck has been the best Batman we've ever had. But they don't have to be as good as Ben. All they have to do is do well. They just have to be good at it, and everything will be fine. So I'm not discounting all these other theories about Flashpoint or the Dick Grayson thing or killing him off or doing all this. I'm not discounting any of that. All that is certainly possible. I just find it funny that as we read through all these threads and all these conversations going on, that it seems 90% of them just overlook the simplest, easiest, and most common sense answer, which would be, if Ben Affleck leaves, just get somebody else to play Bruce Wayne. It just seems that simple to me. So I think the smart money is on that. Again, I'm not saying they absolutely wouldn't do any of those other theories. A lot of the other theories are very good theories. I just think we're overlooking the clearest answer, which is just recast the role. Anyway, thanks a lot for the question, Esther. And then we move on to the next question. And the next question comes to us from Tonks, who writes, "Hey, John, love your videos." Well, thank you so much, Kai. Appreciate that. And my question is this. What do you think about the rumor of the man who saw the early screening of the Justice League and saying it was unwatchable? To me, it's a load of crap, but what are your opinions? Yeah, for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, there was a report that came out and several sites ran with it that there was an early screening of an initial early cut of Batman vs. Superman. And the term, the sexy word that got thrown around there is unwatchable. Okay, fine. Now, here's kind of my approach to these things that come from basically unidentified sources. Like, completely unidentified sources is different from just anonymous sources. Like, I know a lot of people don't like this, but I'm sorry, it's the facts. If Variety or Hollywood Reporter or a major trade like that says, hey, we have an anonymous source that we trust, and we can't give you his name because that would destroy the person if we gave you their name, but we have an anonymous source that is telling us this. That's one thing. It's a totally another thing to just go, to just say, oh, hey, there's some anonymous Reddit user put up this. That's something different. Like, the term anonymous is not a dirty word, because a lot of times, like, unless it's anonymous, you can't report it or else it's going to destroy some people. Like, as somebody who finds out something can't leak it unless, and if you identify them, they're going to be destroyed. But anonymous has a couple of different things. Anonymous, as in some anonymous guy on Reddit posted something, is a completely different situation from something like Hollywood Reporter or Variety saying they have a source that they're keeping anonymous. That's up here. Anonymous, nobody knows who this is. Reddit user, anonymous thing way down here, okay? Those are two totally different things. From what I understand, and I haven't done a ton of research into this, so please forgive me if I'm making an error here. From what I understand, this unwatchable thing is not a Hollywood Reporter source, but it's not exactly a Reddit anonymous. It's somewhere in between, and that's fine. For the somewhere in between stuff, or for like the Hollywood Reporter, Variety has an anonymous source, I take it into consideration, but I don't give it full weight of fact. All right? I take it into consideration, but I don't give it full weight of fact. So when something like this comes out, where they're saying that there's somebody who says they saw, first of all, then that's hearsay. It's not even a source. It's hearsay of a source. But anyway, somebody says that there was a screening of Justice League and that it was unwatchable. Okay, I'll take that in consideration, but I am not going to give it the full weight of the word fact. I'm just not going to give it the full weight of the word fact. Now, I'm not going to take out a broom and sweep it away and say, just ignore that garbage either. I'm not going to do that. I'll take it in consideration. I'll say, okay, I'll keep that. I'll file that away. I'll file that away in the back of my head and I'll keep that in mind. But I'm not going to give it the full weight of fact. And when I'm considering everything, I'll take that in consideration, sure, but I'm not going to give it the full weight of fact. So when I hear that somebody out there said that a first cut of Justice League was unwatchable, I'm not going to get excited about that, either positively excited or negatively excited about it. I'm not going to get worked up over that because, okay, somebody out there is saying that. Great. It's not a fact. It's not the Hollywood Reporter reporting it. It's not this, that, and the other thing. So I'll file it away. Sure, I'll listen to it, but I'm not going to base any of my decisions or any of my opinions on that. Okay. Now, what does strike me as a little bit funny is some of the inherent hypocrisy in this. Because if it was an anonymous source saying, we just saw the first cut of Batman vs. Superman, and this could be one of the greatest movies of the year, these same people who are saying, don't listen to that bullshit, it's blah, 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 it's nothing, it's anonymous, that means it's nobody, blah, 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 blah. The exact same people. If it was the same situation, only the anonymous source was saying that it's one of the greatest movies of the year, they would be posting that all over their social media like crazy. So yeah, I just think it's important to not overreact to this positively or negatively. Okay, something out there says this. Possibility it's true, possibility it's not. So take it into consideration, but don't give it the weight of fact. Don't let it dictate what your opinion is going to be, and we'll just see. I mean, that's really all we can do at the end of the day is just see. Like, again, it's different. Sometimes you have to weigh each situation. You have to evaluate each situation on their own merits. But like, for instance, remember that one time there was a screenshot got leaked on Reddit from an anonymous user, and it was a screenshot of how Batman versus Superman was being split into two films. Part one was going to be called Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. Part two was going to be called Batman versus Superman, Enter the Night, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, come on, people. This is an image that somebody photoshopped from an anonymous user posted on Reddit. Come on, don't give it any weight. You have to really take all of the factors into consideration and consider all. But I would suggest don't get terribly excited about this unwatchable statement one way or the other. We'll see. The movie will come out and then we will see. Anyway, thanks a lot for the question. And we move on now to the next question. Comes to us from James Walsh, who writes, hello, John, and thank you for taking my question. You're welcome, James. Thank you for sending in a question. With Lucky Logan being released this week, I was wondering if you had the chance to see it, and what did you think? Also, what are some of your other favorite Steven Soderbergh films? Well, thanks a lot for the question, James. Yeah, I just recently put up my review of Logan Lucky. If you want, you can look on my YouTube channel and you'll see my review for Logan Lucky there. A little bit of a spoiler here. I quite enjoyed it. That's a spoiler of my review, not a spoiler of the movie. I quite enjoyed the film. I thought it was quite good. So you can check out my review there. As far as my favorite Soderbergh films, a lot of people will point to Ocean's 11, and that's a great movie. I like Ocean's 11 a lot. Aaron Brockovich got a lot of won Oscars, and it got a lot of Oscar buzz and stuff like that. Obviously got Julia Roberts her Academy Award for Best Actress, so that's great too. My favorite, though, I think might be Contagion. And that's not a beloved film. And I liked the film right away. I didn't love Contagion, but I've seen it a few times since, and it's really grown on me a lot. And I think because I didn't like it nearly as much because I like another movie that's kind of around the same theme called Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman. I like that movie more. But Contagion, I think, is an underappreciated Soderbergh film. So I'm just going to say, if you haven't had a chance to check out Contagion, I would highly recommend treat yourself. Get on out there, check it out, download it, stream it, whatever you need to do, legally, of course, and check out Contagion. I think you'll enjoy it. All right, we move on now to the next question. And the next question comes to us from Duo Geeks, who writes, hey, John, big fan of the show. Thank you so much. I am hoping Rey in the new Star Wars trilogy doesn't turn out to be a Skywalker, as I think it's too much of an easy and safe move for Disney. I rather hope she could be a Kenobi. Do you think an Obi-Wan movie is being made to give an explanation for this if it was true? Thanks a lot for the question, Duo Geeks, and I'm going to say yes. I have come to the point. Now, look, first of all, there are two separate points of view on this. Point of view number one is that her parents are nobody. She's just another child. Just like all the other Jedi that have come before her, they come from anonymous parents. That Rey comes from anonymous parents who haven't been in the movies before. That's one point of view. The other group of point of views is that she's the daughter of someone. So whether that someone is Luke, or whether that someone is the lineage of Obi-Wan Kenobi, or whether that someone is she's created from a clone DNA of the Emperor, or whether she's, Darth Vader reincarnated. So she's the daughter attached to somebody significant versus the other point of view that not to anybody significant. If I had to put money on this, I would still say that smart money is on of no significance, that her parents are just a couple of people. And there's that. But just for fun, let's look at the other point of view, that she is connected to somebody, right? I have been convinced that if that happens, that if Rey is connected to somebody, I have now officially bought into the Obi-Wan Kenobi theory, that the Obi-Wan Kenobi lineage makes the most sense to me. It would explain her accent. I mean, because if Obi-Wan did have a child, the child would pick up their accent from their father, and then they would then pass on their accent to their child, and hence you end up with Rey with an English accent. So that would make sense. That works there too. I really do believe that the whole reason an Obi-Wan movie is getting made is it's going to show the lineage of Rey. And I think we are going to see that this is what I think is going to happen. I think we're going to see in this movie that Obi-Wan, whether it's on Tatooine or traveling off Tatooine to do something else to protect Luke, is going to end up falling in love, because there's no Jedi Order anymore. So he's going to fall in love. He's going to have a child. That child is going to have a child. Realizing that their child is Force sensitive and could be very strong in the Force, and realizing that could bring incredible danger to the child, they decide to hide the child away, fly off to Jakku, leave their child there with Unkar Plot, and then flying away in Rey's vision, you see the ship flying away. That's Obi-Wan's kid and Obi-Wan's kid's spouse flying off and leaving Rey behind to keep her hidden. I think that's it. And I think the Obi-Wan movie will probably end with, again, this is all fun fan speculation, okay? Just all fun fan speculation. That's all this is, okay? So in the movie, Obi-Wan has a child, and then at the end of that movie, the child tells Obi-Wan, your grandfather, meet your granddaughter, Rey. Or, well, obviously, Obi-Wan never gets to meet her. But anyway, so, because Obi-Wan dies. But I think that makes sense. I think that could actually work, that she is Obi-Wan's granddaughter, or even great-granddaughter. I mean, you could line up the ages for great-granddaughter there. But yeah, I believe the events and the dialogue in Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, clearly shows that she is not a Skywalker. I believe, especially from Maz Kanata, when you listen to the words that Maz Kanata says to Rey, if you use logic, I believe, it is 100% clear that Rey is not a Skywalker. And another thing, that scene also points to Obi-Wan lineage, because she's saying there's this attachment between her and the lightsaber. Luke didn't have that lightsaber very long. He was barely in possession of it at all. You know who did have that lightsaber for a long time, like decades long? Obi-Wan. That lightsaber was in the possession of Obi-Wan for decades. Luke had it for a little while, but not long. Obi-Wan had it for decades. So if there is some kind of Force connection between her and that lightsaber, it could completely be explained by her connection to Obi-Wan. Also, why is Obi-Wan speaking to her directly in her Force visions? And remember, her Force vision ends with the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi saying to her, Rey, these are your first steps. She's never met Obi-Wan. Like, why would Obi-Wan be talking to her? Why not somebody else? So that would point to it as well. Again, I would say that the smart money in this whole scenario is on Rey not being anybody in particular. She's not anybody in particular. Her parents aren't of anybody of significance or of note in the Star Wars universe. But if she is connected to somebody in the Star Wars universe, I would put my money on Rey Kenobi. So that's where I think it is. And I do think that the Obi-Wan movie will kind of hint at that or point some things out in that. Again, pure fan speculation, not basing this on anything but speculation and my own deductive reasoning, nothing else whatsoever at all. But that's my theory. All right. Thanks a lot for the question, man. We move on to the next question. And the next question, it also pertains to Obi-Wan. Comes to us from Cameron McCarthy, who writes, hello, John. Love the show. Thank you so much, Cameron. My question is this. With the recent news of the Obi-Wan film, over or under 50% that we will get a trilogy? Or do you think it will be a singular film like Rogue One? I can't imagine that we won't get a trilogy with this popular of a character. Well, thanks a lot for the question, Cameron. I believe this. I believe Lucasfilm is not going to go into the first Obi-Wan film movie with an absolute 100% ironclad plan to do a trilogy. I think the first Obi-Wan film will be a standalone film that will end in such a way that if successful enough and the fans demand it enough, they can easily go back and do another one. and maybe even another one after that. But I do think they will construct and make the Obi-Wan film as a standalone film first. And then they'll evaluate and see, because, they make a first Obi-Wan film and it makes $500 million, which would be great. That would be profitable. But it's not exactly something that would be screaming for a sequel or a trilogy. If the movie, they put it out and it makes $800 million worldwide, then yeah, that's another $300 million. Then yes, they got to do it. So what I think they're going to do, I think they're going to be very thoughtful about this. I think they're going to be very smart about it. I think that when they officially announce the Obi-Wan movie, because remember, it hasn't officially been announced yet. It's just Variety that has broken the news. But when Disney and Lucasfilm decide to come out and put out the press release that says Obi-Wan is coming, I do not think there's going to be any talk of a trilogy. I think they're going to do a standalone, and I could be wrong about this. They absolutely could do it as a trilogy. Absolutely. But the way I think they'll do it at any rate is that they will put out the announcement, Obi-Wan is coming, no mention of a trilogy. They'll do the first film. They'll do it as a standalone. It'll have its own beginning, middle, and end. But it will end in such a way that it ends perfectly as a standalone, but you can come back logically and do more. So clearly, Obi-Wan's not going to die at the end of the Obi-Wan movie because he has to be alive for Star Wars Episode 4. So that's how I think they're going to handle it. So on the over and under, will they announce a trilogy under 50%? I'll go like 20%. Over or under that the Obi-Wan story will actually ultimately be a trilogy? Over or under 50%? I'll go over. I'll take 60% that at the end of the day, it will end up being a trilogy. I just don't think they're going to announce it as a trilogy. So anyway, that's my thought on that. Thanks so much for the question, man. And now we move on to the final question of today's show. And the final question today comes to us from Jackson Gedge, who writes, "Hey, John, you're my favorite podcaster. I'm in love with your podcast." Thank you so much, Jackson. I really appreciate that, man. So my question is, do you think Christoph Waltz will return in James Bond 25? And what are your expectations for it? Well, my expectations for James Bond 25 are very high because the Daniel Craig James Bond seems to be going brilliant, okay, and they're just coming off an okay movie, Inspector. Some people thought that movie sucked. I don't get that. I watched it a little bit later than most people. Like I didn't see it in advance press screening for it. And I heard some people say it sucked. Some people really liked it. But some people thought it sucked. And I watched it. I was like, well, this is clearly not as good as Skyfall. But I mean, this isn't that bad. This is actually pretty good. So anyway, the James Bond films seem to be going in a pattern with Daniel Craig of brilliant, okay, brilliant, okay. They're coming off an okay one. That means the next one's going to be brilliant. So yeah, I have high expectations for it. Daniel Craig is, of course, coming back to play Bond again, which I think is awesome. I think look, if you don't bring back Christoph Waltz, then you're kind of neutering Spectre altogether. Like clearly the whole point of Spectre was to introduce the organization of Spectre, but also to introduce us to Blofeld. And the fact it was in the third act that Blofeld really reveals who he is to James Bond, and he survives the movie. So it's like, if to not bring him back at that point would seem very weird and very odd. Because like, again, you're completely diminishing and wiping out your entire third act really of Spectre. And I don't know, maybe they want to separate themselves from Spectre. Maybe they tried it and they thought the way they did Blofeld didn't quite work and they want to move on and do something else instead of Blofeld. I mean, that's completely possible too. But you also have one of the great character actors in the world right now, a two-time Academy Award-winning actor in Christoph Waltz. And I thought he played a very good Blofeld. I wasn't completely thrilled with all the stuff they did with Blofeld. Like, I'm not saying the way they handled their character was perfect or great, or they couldn't have done some things better, because clearly they could have. But I thought for what the script was, Christoph Waltz took that script and took that character and made him pretty intriguing. And I am intrigued by the twist on the Blofeld character at the end, and that sets you up for some great storytelling later. So I think the chances are pretty good Christoph Waltz comes back. I hope they do. I feel like it would be a missed opportunity if they don't. Again, especially if you understand the ending of The Last James Bond, and I don't want to spoil it for you for those who haven't seen it yet. But yeah, we're just going to have to wait and see how that turns out. Anyway, guys, that will do it for me for this installment of the John Campea podcast here, a special Saturday edition. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to have more videos coming up this weekend. Of course, keep your eyes open for that. Hey, a little bit earlier, I mentioned that one of my Patreon supporters asked one of the first questions. If you're one of the people who enjoys my videos, I put out 70 to 90 every single month, consider becoming one of my Patreon supporters. Look in the description of this video and you'll find a link to my Patreon page to give you all more information. Listen, while you're here, click on the subscribe button, become a subscriber to my YouTube channel. Make sure you're following me on social media, on Facebook and on Twitter, simply at John Campea. Anyway, that'll do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, bye-bye.